Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and once again joined by my good friend, wonderful co-host, Oscar. How you doing today, mate?
Yeah, all good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. We held off recording in the hope that there would be some sort of team news or press conference, but alas, here we are without one. So I guess we just assume that everyone's fit and go from there, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think I can't. Were there any injured for last week? I don't think there were.
I don't think so, but I mean, to be fair, based off of some of the things we've had from the press conference in the last few weeks, I don't really know if the team news is actually worth the salt it's mentioned on anyway. So,
yeah, that's true. Very true.
But that's it. We head into the weekend to play what could be a historic game. I guess it's the last league game at Goodison Park for the men's team. I saw it came out this week that instead of demolishing the stadium, they're going to let the women play there from next season, which is interesting. I've seen plenty of posts saying that Everton fans have been told they're allowed to take their seat with them on Sunday after the game. So
I was about to say I'm fascinated to see them stand down the wrenches and the chisels.
Yeah,
to get their seats out.
I think I saw some pictures of people at the last game with tape measures and all sorts of professional work.
Good luck stopping them.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting game, right? Because we've got nothing to play for apart from to ruin their party, and they're going to be presumably in party atmosphere. You know, they've also got nothing to play for in the league wise. So
yeah, I think it's one of those where it's another in typical Saintsy fashion, a bit like with Leicester and Jamie Vardy. It's given them a bit of an extra impetus to play a game that otherwise would have been a bit of a dead rubber. I think some of ours have still got a point to prove. You know, I don't think the fans will wear them downing tools or being on the beach. And I think from their perspective, quite a few of our players have got to think they're playing for where they're going to be playing next season if they're not going to be playing for us. So, yeah, I think there's something on it for both, really.
Do you think we see another ground out horrible performance like we saw against City, or do you think now that we're over the points mark and there is a bit of freedom that we might actually sort of try and play a game?
I'd like to hope so. I think there's what is there to lose now. You know, I think we'll touch into it in the lineups, I'm sure, but I think they want to probably start. I suppose it's difficult if Rusk knows that he's not going to be the man in charge next season, but wanting to start have a look, I would say, at ideas for next season maybe, and not to too much of an extent, obviously, if there's going to be a new manager. But yeah, I'd like to think that what is there to lose? You know, you've given the fans not much to cheer about all season, so why not go out? Why not go out now and actually at least put a performance to be proud of, whether it's the result or not? You know, it's neither here nor there.
I mean, genuinely, I feel at this point like I'd rather get battered 5-0 playing a game of it than have to sit through like another 90 minutes like we saw against City. Don't get me wrong, the joy that came from City because it pushed us over the points boundary was worth the suffering, but at this point it feels like such a moot point because it's not worth anything. Like grinding out a point affects nothing.
Yeah. I think it wouldn't hurt to try and carry on building a bit of positive momentum if possible, but not. I agree. Not at the extent of let's just absolutely shut up shop and try and park the bus.
Yeah,
you know, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the way to get anything out of this game anyway. If I'm honest,
if we are in a party spoiling mood, who's the funniest player to score the last ever league goal at Goodison Park?
I mean, there's only one man, isn't there? One man for the job, and Tall Paul.
Yeah,
surely.
100%, yeah. It would be the most party pooping send-off, right?
Especially if it's a really dirty, horrible goal as well.
Oh, yeah, it would be completely by accident, like an absolute fumble.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could definitely
That'd be beautiful. Maybe a Sulemana one, just so that Zach finally gets his bet.
Yeah, Zach gets his shirt. we see some backflips. Seems like everyone's a winner.
Exactly.
I don't know. With the sort of sense of occasion and the dead rubberness of it, is it really hard to predict what's going to go on, or do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, like I say, Everton will be in the mood for it. The fans will be up for it. So it is our job to go and spoil the party. To be fair, we're not usually awful at that, but at the same time, we have a moment like, for example, I think everyone knew Jamie Vardy was going to score last week. So, but if we can spoil the party again and do something similar to the City game, just maybe a little bit more exciting way, then happy days to all.
You're right. I did hear that we, I haven't really travelled to away games, so I can't say that I speak from memory on any of these occasions, but we do have a bit of a track record of beating teams in their last game at their stadiums.
Oh, do we?
We won 1-0 in the last game at Main Road.
Mm.
Continuing to be Man City's bogey side ever since, clearly.
Yeah.
Was it Sunderland at their old stadium we beat? I'm sure that I saw some stats floating around on one of the social media pages.
Brighton, maybe? The Jose Fonte last-minute winner?
Yes, I think that's one of them. But yeah, so maybe that's the way to go. Just a horrible performance with a horrible goal and a 1-0 win to spoil the party. Feels like the cherry on the top of the season, really, doesn't it? That would really put the point home.
I think so. If we're gonna go down upset, let's drag someone with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we're gonna head into some predicted lineups, but first, a message from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Okay, and we are back. So I guess there's two trains of thought here, right? There's something similar, but presumably with a bit more attack to it than last week, or something completely different and give some youngsters a chance. I don't know. What way do you think is the most likely of the two?
Most likely, I'm not sure. If it were me, I would head down the route of keep it similar where we can, but start to think with next season in mind a little bit and see if there's, I'll explain it when we go in, but like some combinations that we can maybe look at to see what, if anything, we need to do in the summer, or obviously they'll have a better idea of who's looking to stay, who's looking to go. But I don't see any particular reason to change any of the back. Certainly back 3, 4, including the keeper. A good chip win downs. The only one I might consider keeping would be Bree. Keep Bree in there because he did okay against Man City, and if Walker Peters is going to be going anyway.
I was going to say, if he's back feeling well, does he make his way back in, or do you think that might have been it for him? Maybe he gets bought on. Well,
I mean, I think Walker Peters is this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, obviously we know he's a good player, but we have to start thinking about our future now, and we need to start thinking about, do we need a new right back for the Championship? Is Bree going to be good enough? So why not start to look now? I appreciate we've had 2 seasons with him, so they'd like to have an idea, but he did okay in the last game. Why not? You still bring Walker Peters on for a little bit if it's not working, or towards the end, or have him maybe as a more attacking threat a bit later on.
I mean, he's definitely a name off the bench that brings a bit more excitement than most of the other things we've got off the bench, right?
Exactly, yeah. And, he played his part in the defence that kept a very rare clean sheet. So, maybe he's earned his spot. And then, again, potentially on the other side, do you keep Wellington there, or by all accounts he had quite a good game, or is Ryan Manning back in there?
Yeah, I feel like either of those two is fine. It feels like they're going to be probably both of our options next season, if we're being honest about it. So
I wouldn't mind having a bit more of a look at Wellington. I think we've seen more or less we know what we're going to get with Manning.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. What about Downs and Ugachugwu works?
Yeah,
But
I think that
we're
midfield
definitely going to be
three.
losing Ugachugwu in the summer. Is there any?
Yeah, I mean that is true. I appreciate that he's not going to be sticking around, but then maybe the replacement for that position is Shea Charles when he comes back.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
I think he's probably a bit too important from how we've been playing recently to be one that we can drop, because we've seen, Russell Martin said in his interview, an area we struggle with is athleticism and physicality, and he brings that. So
100%.
he would be one I would stick with, even though the likelihood is he won't be here next season. You never know. Chelsea might fancy lending him to us again, but I don't necessarily see it.
Matty Fernandez in a number 10, right? He's got to be the first name on the team sheet.
Yeah, I would have said so. It'll be interesting to see that battle, not that necessarily be directly against each other, but Fernandez versus Alcaraz could be an interesting one.
Yeah, that has potential to be spicy. That could be a proper bust-up.
Well, exactly. Maybe Downs versus Alcaraz could be the more exciting one.
Yeah, so they're both quite hot-headed. That would be very interesting. And then I guess up front, Tall Paul or Ross Stewart?
Well, again, looking forwards, is Tall Paul going to stick around? Maybe, maybe not. If Ross Stewart's back fit, for me, he did quite well again the other day when he played. I'd like to see, I know we've said it a few times with Cameron Archer, I still think there's something in there, but I think he has to play as a front two.
Him and Ross Stewart feels like the combination. When they came on together against City, that was what created that one chance that we had.
Yeah.
Apart from Diblin's ghost foul, it was maybe the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But
I think that's what I would go for if it were me, if everyone's fighting fit and etc. I suspect it might be a combination of Tall Paul and Sulemana. Especially Everton are fairly strong defensively, but I'm not necessarily blessed with pace. I can't pretend to know exactly who's been playing, but if it's a combination of Branthwaite, Tarkowski, maybe that is an avenue we can get in behind. But
yes, it'll be an interesting battle. They're in a bit of form, but then they beat Fulham, who have been struggling. They drew with Ipswich and they lost to Chelsea and City, so it's hard to gauge where they're at form-wise. It's going to be it's such a difficult to predict game. There's so many moving parts and factors, and the atmosphere is definitely going to play its part. And I wonder if, because of the disappointing few seasons they've had, that if we somehow start strong and nab an early goal, if it already ruins the party atmosphere and sort of gives us the real opportunity.
I think so. I think hopefully, that can be something we can look to exploit. And I think again, maybe now with the points total sorted, maybe it is a bit of a monkey off the back of the players and they can actually go out and play with a bit of freedom.
Yeah.
And it might be something that, release the shackles a little bit and maybe just freeze everyone up, and all of a sudden we start purring and, suddenly show our qualities. I'm not necessarily saying that's likely, but...
Yeah. Stranger things have happened, right? We could go and spoil the party at Goodison Park and have a ridiculous day out. And then, last game of the season against Arsenal, we've seen some crazy last days of the season all over the shop when they don't mean anything. So,
that's true.
Literally anything can happen.
And it is one of the very few two teams that we've beaten this year. I can't even. Not that it's difficult to keep count of.
We beat Everton in also a very questionable performance at home earlier in season. It was. But I think
wasn't it the one where Beto hit the crossbar and then we've gone up the other end from that shot and scored?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so it'll be an interesting one. Imagine if we beat them and they are the only team to lose twice to one of the worst teams in Premier League history.
Cool.
On their last day in their
last day ever. It'd be nice to go out, we like to set all these records. It'd be nice to go out with some sort of a bang.
Positive record, yeah, that would be interesting. Okay, well, we'll touch back on how we actually think it's going to play out and get our score predictions. But first, a message from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okie doke. Oscar, as always, I'm going to throw you straight under the bus and get your prediction first. How are you feeling it's going to play out?
Again, like you said, I think it's a really difficult one to predict. I think we will perform a bit better. I think there's enough players that, okay, yes, whilst they're on the beach to an extent, I think a few of them will be aware they're playing for... Probably, I can't imagine that everyone is desperate to stay for next season. So I imagine they'll be playing for some sort of recognition for maybe a move. So I think we'll play okay, but I think the party atmosphere will be enough for Everton. I've gone for a 2-1 win to Everton. I think it will be quite cagey. I think we might even score first in traditional Southampton way recently. And then Everton equalise, and then the momentum just builds and builds, and they get a fairly late on winner. I think that's the route I'm going to go down. Yeah. Do I dare ask?
Look, we're 36 games into the season, and it's been a woeful season, and I'm yet to predict a Saints loss. So we're not starting now, are we? I think 2-0. I think we'll get an early goal. And then I just think as they start to push, maybe, just maybe, we see some resilience and we find those cracks and push back on and get a second goal. And I think Ross Stewart will get the early goal. And then, why not? Tall Paul to score the final goal, league goal at Goodison Park is
Ross Stewart
written in history.
Strike force of dreams.
Yeah.
I'm all here for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, neither of them are going to make it 90 minutes, so they're going to have their opportunity to both play on the pitch. That's where I'm working with. But yeah,
I think Ross Stewart. I think I think he's been interviewed a few times this week, isn't he? And he said about how he wants to repay the fans, and it's been a tough season. It's been a tough couple of years for him. So maybe it's one of those that's written in the stars, or. Yeah. On the flip of it, it might be written in the stars that he picks up a knock in the first 5 minutes and gets forced off.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell. It's going to be such a strange day. It's 12 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday as well, which is such a sort of strange time of day to be kicking off. It's going to be a very interesting one to watch, that's for sure. But at least we don't have to fly to our overseas residence to watch it this weekend. That'll be a nice.
No, that is true. It's, thinking about it in hindsight, a Moyes versus Rusk, where Rusk seems to be very excited about keeping things tight defensively.
It's got a horrible 0-0 written all over it, right?
It does a little bit in hindsight, thinking about it. So, you never know. I'm interested to see the battle, as I say. Big Tarkowski and Branthwaite up against a Tall Paul or Ross Stewart could be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. I'm very much looking forward to it. Before we wrap up and share our sort of closing thoughts, I wanted to it would be remiss of me not to mention an article I saw today about the price of Will Steele suddenly dropping frantically towards our next manager. Is that something that pay much attention to, heed much credit, or is it just many of our listeners lumping on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one. It would be, I don't know why now would be the time to sort of lump on. As I say, I think, and Zach's quite vocal in his support of, or not support necessarily, but his somewhat support of Will Steele, and that I think he'd be a good addition. I do think, it's probably the route we're looking to go down. Why not? He seems to be a resourceful guy. He's done well with Lons, so
seems like the most promising of the bunch to me. To be honest, he sort of stands out as someone who's a bit of what we were lacking this season, right? A bit versatile, a bit tactical, bit able to flex to what's needed.
Yeah, I think to adapt, and as I say, I think sometimes. I don't. Not that I 100% know. I don't think that he's played to a particular level, and it's again seems to be, it swings and roundabouts every so often between managers that are ex-players that come in and do this, that, and the other, and don't do particularly well. I know there's the odd one that does, or you have someone that come in. For me, it looks like the better managers historically have been ones that aren't necessarily top players. I know there's exceptions to that rule as well. I know Guardiola, but sometimes it does take being a student of the game, and that really strikes me of what Will Steele is. And he's studied it, he's worked hard, he's worked his way up, he's grinded. So I'm not against the appointment. Do I think that everyone lumping onto it now means it's imminently going to be announced? I think it's tricky. I don't think anything will be announced till the end of the season anyway.
No, I don't think so. It would be stupid to announce something before Arsenal. Although maybe it depends how their first week of season ticket sales goes. We'll see.
Yeah, well, that is true as well. Yeah, I wouldn't. Do you know what I wouldn't mind actually, which is something that seems to have gone out of the window. Particularly, I think we spoke about it with player transfers. Is like a stadium announcement where they bring them out the tunnel and do a few keepy uppies and things. Not saying to do that with the manager, although that would be quite exciting if he's not a player. But could you make a bit of a show of it and announce him at the game?
Run him out to the northern fan zone before the Arsenal game. Why not? That would really be something. That was for sure. But nevertheless, we cast our eyes forward to the game at the weekend first, as we can continue on our pre-season tour. This time, hopefully, to break Everton's hearts. But we will see. That is just about all we've got time for. Oscar, thank you very much for joining me. We will be back on Monday, regardless of what happens. Whether we spoil Everton's party or Everton spoil our, I don't know if you can call a 0-0 draw with Man City a run of form, but it feels that way.
A new manager bounce.
New manager bounce, that's it. Thank you, everyone. Drop your score predictions in the comments. Hit us up on the socials. Let us know how you think the game's going to play out. Like I say, we'll be back on Monday. But until then, have a wonderful weekend.
Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.